Hi, today I'm going to be comparing two possible intervention programs for mathematics in our school context. Just a quick agenda. So I'm going to look at why we might look at maths interventions right now, a bit of background with the response to intervention model. I'll introduce the two options that I've selected for possible maths intervention program. So option one is called Getting Ready in Numeracy, or GRIN, and option two is called Quick Smart Numeracy. We'll look at the pros and cons of both. I'll do a bit of a comparison, look at the limits of actually maths intervention more generally, and I'll make a recommendation at the end. So firstly, why would we look at maths interventions now? Currently, we use Maths Pathway, which allows young people to move through the curriculum in a self-paced way. This is fantastic in the sense that there's a focus on mastery and young people are filling gaps that they might have. It's an individualized program, but it does move them very slowly, and it's not an intervention as it has no exit point. If we have a think about interventions, we know that, for example, at our school, young people participate in specific short courses sometimes with tangible results, and we show really high completion, attendance, and success rate with these. So I thought, why couldn't we channel this idea into short, specific maths intervention? And we know that our PADM data shows that 85% of our young people who are all over age 12 have primary level mathematics. And I think this is really illustrated by this quote from Evidence for Learning's guidance report in 2020, where they say that a 15-year-old from a low socioeconomic background is nearly 4 times more likely to be below expected levels for maths achievement than classmates from more advantaged homes. These are the young people that we work with, and we're doing them a disservice if we don't intervene on their maths achievement and outcomes. We're sending them out into the world not numerate and really vulnerable to the dangers of that, really. A little bit of a background around what intervention is. So the term intervention, as we know, does refer to what teachers do each day to address the learning needs of young people, such as misconceptions or confusions. And a useful way to plan intervention is this response to intervention, or RTI, 3-tier model, which is very well documented. Like, for example, it's in the ASA report from 2013, which is a review of all, like, lots and lots of intervention programs. And Hughes and Dexter talk about it as well. They talk about a multi-tiered approach to help struggling learners. The model looks at 3 tiers. So tier 1, or wave 1, refers to universal instruction, sometimes called. So quality teaching that will support satisfactory progress for most young people. Tier, or wave 2, is additional or alternative experiences for small groups of young people who are making slower progress. So this is needed for approximately 15% of young people. And tier, or intervention wave 3, is highly specialised assessment, instruction, and intensive personalised support, which about 5% of young people require. The interventions that I will be introducing and considering hover around the tier 2 or tier 3 mark, depending on how they're implemented. So introducing the two options, Getting Ready in Numeracy, or GRIN, and Quick Smart Numeracy. So both of these are Australian intervention programs that are currently used in schools. They seem relatively resource efficient in the sense that they both have professional learning for staff that staff can then roll out straight into schools. There's no sort of ongoing subscriptions. And the reason I chose these two and not some of the other ones on offer is that these are for around level 3 or grade 3 and up, whereas some of the other Australian intervention programs like Best Start, Targeted Early Numeracy 10, or Extending Mathematical Understanding, which their little acronym is EMU. These two are designed for very low primary, so levels 1 and 2, and might not be suitable for our cohort. So looking first at intervention option 1, so getting ready in numeracy or GRIN. As a general overview, it's a professional learning program for primary and secondary maths teachers and tutors, which is quite cool. And prior to the maths lesson, GRIN sessions are conducted with small groups of young people, ideally 3. And the sessions go for about 15 to 25 minutes. It's come out of Monash University, actually. A bit of an analysis of the pros and cons of GRIN. So some of the pros are fantastic and especially suited to our school. So the GRIN tutors, the people who undergo the training, can be teachers or they can be education support staff. So we could use youth workers, which is really attractive. The professional development is really short. It's 1 face-to-face day and then 2 subsequent half days, and quite cheap. So down the bottom there, you can see it's just under $4,000 for up to 4 participants initially for a new school. So very, very cost effective. And the Department of SA, we know, says that professional learning is an important aspect of effective intervention in mathematics. So just having these staff undergo this professional development, I think, would be really good. And the research is preliminary at this stage, but it does show an improvement in confidence and self-esteem in maths for the students that have undergone this intervention. And that makes me think of the links between growth mindset and student achievement in mathematics. And Bostwick et al. Showed that growth mindset is actually correlated with positive outcomes in mathematics. So working on growth mindset correlates with outcomes in mathematics and student achievement going up as well. So I think this is particularly pertinent for our cohort, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a tick. But the cons are also quite significant. So for our school, implementation might be quite difficult because young people ideally attend 2 or 3 GRIN sessions per week, which for us is really tricky because our attendance hovers around the 50% mark. So it will be really hard to get young people to do their GRIN session and the math session that it referred to, I would say. It's also a licensed program, so staff who deliver GRIN must have completed the professional learning, and those professional learning dates are predetermined annually. So if a staff member leaves, and we do have really high turnover, it'll be really hard to have someone retrained in their place. And also, like, quite sort of shockingly, all of the supporting research does come from the GRIN manual and come out of Monash University. And others have said that there's insufficient research evidence at this time to determine the impact. So while it looks really promising, it's really cost effective, not very resource intensive, and could have really good effects on growth mindset, actually, we don't know if it's effective yet. So shifting to option 2, intervention option 2 is called Quick Smart Numeracy. It's developed by researchers at the University of New England in New South Wales, and it's specifically for middle school young people. So young people in years 5 to 8 are withdrawn from class. It's a withdrawal program, and ideally pairs of young people. So this is looking more at tier 1, really, tier 3, that really intensive support. Pairs of young people take part in intensive 30-week intervention where there's a focus on automaticity and speed of retrieval of basic arithmetic facts. This intervention program has a wide range of evidence, actually. There's reasonably extensive research and evaluation that's been done, and there's moderate evidence for positive impact on student achievement. And when we look at the way the program is designed, actually that idea of promoting fluency is one of Peter Sullivan's 6 key principles for effective teaching of maths. So that could be why the data is there for positive impacts on student achievement. one other thing that's really good about it is that it has a clear exit point. There's a clear criteria for when young people have acquired the skills taught and no longer require the program. And the evidence that's out there suggests end of program and longitudinal gains for Indigenous and non-Indigenous young people, which is fantastic. However, the cons are that this focus on automaticity and retrieval of facts takes away from a focus on problem solving. And in Evidence for Learning's guidance report that I mentioned before, one of the 8 recommendations is specifically to teach strategies for solving problems, and they don't talk about the importance for improving automaticity and the importance of improving automaticity in fact retrieval. So there's a bit of a clash of evidence there. There's also a danger, I think, with the withdrawal program of possible negative social and emotional consequences. And Masterson and Koch talk about a streamed class where young people, were just having really negative impacts on their growth mindset. And we know that growth mindset can be a positive factor for student achievement. So there's a bit of a danger there. And I think especially for our cohort, this can be problematic. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. I think there's no focus on conceptual understanding, and the Department of Victoria says that skill practice is appropriate only once a thorough understanding of the target concept has been established. So there's a danger here that that young people are practicing skills that they don't have any conceptual understanding for. And the last con is that it's very expensive. So $10,500 for the initial skill development for up to 5 staff members, but still, and it's 6 days. So it's $10,500 plus the casual relief teaching costs. So a bit of a comparison now. I think the ones that stand out for me is that one of the big cons of the GRIN program is that it doesn't yet have a wide research base, and the research is coming out of Monash Uni that is supporting it, whereas Quick Smart Numeracy has a wide range of evidence. So you really can't argue against that. However, one of the dangers of Quick Smart Numeracy are these really quite possible negative social and emotional consequences due to withdrawal from class. And I think this is just too much of a danger for young people in our cohort who already have negative school experiences, who are already coming with low self-esteem due to trauma. And so in that sense, the GRIN program, which has this link between growth in self-esteem and growth in growth mindset, in that sense, the GRIN program might be better suited, particularly to our cohort. A few things to consider, I think, in terms of intervention more generally, though, is that research into mathematical difficulties are based on these difficulties in arithmetic. So I think when we look at the evidence base that's for Quick Smart Numeracy, it may well be that we just have more information about what difficulties in arithmetic look like and better ways of measuring that. Whereas mathematical difficulties are actually so heterogeneous. There's so many different areas that you might struggle with, and basic arithmetic is a really narrow part of that. And the other thing is that most intervention studies have been done with primary school age children aged between 5 and 11. We definitely don't work with primary school age children. And I think teenagers are a really different kettle of fish. So really, even looking into these intervention programs is just there's quite a limited scope for looking into them and analysing them, which lands me to my recommendation, which is I've been asked to look into intervention programs and what we can bring in this school. But actually my recommendation for 2022 is to continue the Tier 1 in-class differentiation, because I think, firstly, there's very little evidence that these licensed intervention programs will have more impact than high impact teaching strategies in our settings. I think they're more suited to larger settings where it's more difficult to individualise learning, whereas we are looking at classrooms where there might be 12 to 16 young people on the roll, depending on the class. But in reality, we might be having less than 10 young people arrive each day. So within those like 10 to 15 young people, we know that within class grouping has a positive effect on the performance of low achievers if accompanied by appropriate activities and materials. So there's no reason why we can't group young people within class to really attend to their needs and intervene in what they need for their maths learning without the use of these external programs. So I think I would say that my recommendation is to continue professional learning for teachers in mathematics, as we've been doing, guided by the evidence for learning recommendations, which I think are really thorough and will send us in the right direction for making numerate citizens. And finally, these are just my references if you want to read more or want to know where I have found the information that I've been talking about. Thanks so much.